Feeding the traveling overseer, also known as the circuit overseer, a Hawke'S Tawk Squawk. So, I was in one of the ex-Jehovah's Witnesses groups, and I came across a post of someone that was they had just left the organization not too long ago, maybe within like the past few months or so. And they said that the last meeting that they attended was when the circuit overseer had came to the congregation. And also the last time that individual was around their close witness, loved ones and friends, family, or whatever it was, during the feeding of the circuit overseer. So that just gave me flashbacks of all of the feedings of the circuit overseer that I was involved with. And one memorable one, is actually a few memorable ones that stand out. But it was one memorable one, and this isn't even memorable for any positive reasons, because the food was atrocious. That was always my beef when it came to feeding a circuit brother. Like, if you can't cook, don't volunteer to feed the traveling overseer. Now, this was a Saturday. You know, throughout the week, different book study groups take turns hosting the feeding of the traveling overseer and his spouse. You know what I mean? If the individual is married or whatever. So this was one of those Saturdays after field service when one of the book study groups was feeding a brother. Now, the sister that was hosting it, I didn't really know her that well. She was kind of new to the congregation and had actually just moved into the area of our territory. And she wanted to open up her home and feed the circuit brother. She had never had a housewarming or anything like that. So this was kind of her way of christening her new place by hosting a feeding of the circuit brother. Okay, that's great. Problem was, she was a terrible cook and took it upon herself to prepare the whole meal. So, you know, everybody's eating or whatever. I took a couple bites and I was like, I just wasn't feeling it. And my cousin and my homie that were also there, because we was all out in service that day, and she invited a few of the friends, even the ones that weren't, because we weren't in her service group. We weren't in her, and we weren't in her book study group. But what happened was a couple of weeks prior, when she moved in, we had actually assisted her in moving in some of her belongings. And instead of cooking for her, she had just ordered pizzas or whatever, on top of paying us in cash for assisting her with moving. And part of her payment was also inviting us back to her house while they fed the circuit brother. Cool. We was like, all right, we there. We're, you know what I mean, young teenagers. We love to eat. Sure, we're going to be there. Only not knowing that she couldn't cook. So my cousin and a homie, they're not feeling the food, but they don't want to cause a scene or be noticed, so they force their food down. Me, on the other hand, I'm like, nah. I went and threw my plate in the trash. Man, folks got so up in arms. I was called disrespectful. People wanted to question my home training. To which, you know what I mean, I got an attitude like, don't come for my home training, because that's like, you're disrespecting my upbringing and my parents who raised me. So, you know, naturally, I took offense to that. And I'm like, listen, if the food's nasty, I'm not going to eat it. And I'm not going to pretend either. So, of course, the sister who was hosting it felt some kind of way. And, you know, no doubt talked about me like a dog behind my back. My cousin's mom telling me I was real disrespectful for that, and that I should know better because I was raised better. And I was like, well, what was I supposed to do? Like, wrap it up and say, I'm going to eat it later while I'm watching the game or whatever? That's okay. Maybe next time I'll do that. But safe to say that sister never hosted the feeding of the circuit overseer again. And you know, that was a big thing when it came to the West Park congregation and feeding their circuit brother, because I was always on the lookout for which book study group was hosting the feeding on which day. Now in our book study group, I always made sure I was there whenever we would feed the circuit brother. You know, because the friends in my group, like my mom, as much as I, you know what I mean, whatever, as much as I might have spoke my displeasure on her in previous videos, was a good cook. And that goes for some of the other friends in our book study group. They were also pretty good cooks. So whenever our book study group hosted the feeding, I was always there, even if it meant taking a paid day off of work to be there. Because our group always threw down when it came to feeding the circuit brother. And there was a couple of times, speaking to my mom, that we actually opened our home and would have the feeding there, and we would throw down. Now sometimes the group, instead of feeding them by preparing a home cooked meal, would take the brother and his wife out to a restaurant or whatever, or just like order food and pick a certain friend's house to host a luncheon. Now there was one feeding where, remember James Hearns, my homie Nad Rogers Pop, the crooked former presiding overseer that was scheming and scamming and wound up going to prison on top of being disfellowship. This guy, this Mr. Potato Head dude, he was infamous for always trying to pick off of your plate. Like, we could be out at a restaurant or at the feeding for the circuit brother or anything, and it was this one particular time we was feeding the circuit brother, and I go to sit down with my plate, and he calls himself trying to reach across and go into my plate, and I smacked his hand. Like, what are you doing? I mean, like, those natural instincts kick in. You see somebody reaching for your plate, you going to smack their hand away no matter who it is. And man, because he was, at the time, he was still the presiding overseer, not to mention the elder. Of course, all the friends got up in arms like, oh, Eric, you shouldn't do that. He's a spirit-appointed brother, and if he wants something off of your plate, just let him have it. I'm like, no, that's not how that works. First of all, I didn't even see you wash your hands. I don't know where your hands have been. So to think you're just going to reach onto my plate, like, no, that's not what we do. I mean, he never tried it, not again with me. But it would be times after that or whatever where he would ask, could he have something off my plate? To which I would reply, no. Like, get your own. And then the friends or whoever witnessed it would look at me like I had 3 heads and like I had lost my mind. It's just hilarious. But yeah, feeding a circuit brother was always nice. It was always fun to see the friends jumping through hoops over who was going to feed the brother and trying to prepare their best dishes or going overboard with cleaning and redecorating their house just to impress the traveling brother. I always felt that amusing, because I know firsthand when the couple of times we opened up our house to feed the circuit brother, my mom would start cleaning a week in advance. The house top to bottom. Well, we always kept and maintained a clean house, but she would go overboard. Like one time, my mom even went and ordered new furniture. You know what I mean? Had the whole downstairs repainted just to impress the circuit overseer. I mean, that's how the friends did when it came to feeding the circuit brother. But nobody hosted better luncheons for the traveling overseer than my uncle and I, my cousin Sheep's parents. Man, uncle, and if it was during the warmer months when it wasn't too cold, uncle would get on the grill and barbecue while my aunt would be in the kitchen, and we would have a nice spread. Always, I mean, they always threw nice gatherings anyway. But it was like when it came to feeding the circuit brother, they would have a marvelous spread, and it would be enough to where people would be going home with trays. You know what I mean? They would get their next 2 or 3 meals out of that. Like aunt and uncle, they always threw down when it came to that. And my uncle, he was real close with a couple of the circuit overseers anyway. There's one circuit overseer in particular. Now, he wasn't married, he was single. Well, at the time that he was the CO, he was single. But him and my uncle, they was real tight. They maintained a real tight relationship even after this brother was no longer the circuit overseer. But boy, he could eat. He was a big guy too. He could eat. And every time while he was the CO, whenever he came to the congregation, my aunt and uncle always hosted the luncheon for their group, and nobody minded because they knew the spread was going to be marvelous. And they would even have other dinners and or whatever that didn't even have nothing to do for after field service or whatever. But it's always funny that whenever the circuit overseer comes to town, that's when you suddenly have a full congregation attendance at all the meetings. The field service participation is across the board. Friends who ain't been out in field service all year prior to the CO's visit, all of a sudden are coming out in field service. The friends are bringing out their Sunday's best for a Thursday book study. And like I said, it was just always fun seeing the friends jump through hoops for the traveling brothers. Mainly the brothers in the congregation, the quote-unquote exemplary brothers. Those looking to move up to become either a ministerial servant or an elder. Like, it was always funny seeing them do that. But my last CO luncheon attendance, I think it was right after I went back to the West Park congregation, right? Like, not too long before I had left. Matter of fact, it was before I moved out. I had moved out of home for good, moved away for good. And it was like one of the last times I was there when my mom, when we hosted it at our house. That was like one of the last luncheons, and this was a new circuit overseer. I never even really got a chance to meet him. But he was asking me, because at this time I was separated from my wife. I knew I wasn't going back, but my mom, I guess, had told him the situation, and he was telling me how divorce was unacceptable amongst Jehovah's people, and that we need to reconcile, and he hopes to see better attendance from me at the meetings. I just kind of said, yeah, whatever, and just shrugged them off. But that was like my last luncheon for the circuit brother, and it's just funny, it was in a house that I grew up in. Now, when I was going to the Northeast congregation, the friends weren't all extra like at West Park. They didn't really seem to jump through hoops. I mean, they did, but not the way the West Park friends did. I don't really remember that many CO luncheons for the year or so that I went to the Northeast congregation. All the ones I remember was from my time at West Park, but that makes sense seeing how 96% of my J-Dub era was spent with the West Park congregation. But anyway, this was just a little Hawke'S Tawk Squawk. I've been promising y'all some more old J-Dub stories. You know, it's been a lot I've been dealing with, you know what I mean, different projects and, you know, that nature. But I ain't forget about y'all. Just be sure to subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content. Hawk out.